Let me get the watch party ready as well.
So we're live on Facebook, guys. I can see it on my screen. How you guys been doing?
We are on the Facebook. Hello, world.
On.
So I think we've literally, yeah, exactly. Hello, world, right? Wherever you guys are listening in or watching in from. I think we actually haven't had any adjustment or time from our previous private session with our men that we normally do on Zoom. So we've just jumped, I think, pretty much within 1 or 2 minutes live on Facebook. So the topic of today for this week was lockdown lessons, right? So in terms of what are the lessons that you guys have experienced, learned from friends, family, colleagues, corporate, business, individual, whether it's spiritual, whether it's physical, whether it's mindset. And I think there was a lot of questions, a lot of answers, and a lot of reflections that the men shared with us. We won't mention the individual men's names. If we do, it means that we've got their permission to do so. So we'll just take some extracts, I guess, in terms of what those lessons were. And I think on a higher level, in terms of a macro level, I mean, holistically, the topic of conversation was, I guess, if you look at lockdown 1.0, and lockdown 2.0, which is what we're on right now, from the second it started to now, what has been some of your actual learnings? And those learnings could be anything. They don't have to be profound. They could be simple. They could be whatever you want, right? And there were quite a lot of I mean, there was a lot of information that can normally is on the chat window, wasn't there, guys, in terms of people posting books, fitness apps, references to poems, to spiritual literature. So there was quite a lot. And I think just to sort of get the conversation going, I think for me, I'll just personally share the biggest lockdown lesson or lessons for me is that to stop being a part of something, someone, or whatever, whether it's social or not. And I think for me, it started with being in a lot of social groups, a lot of WhatsApp groups that actually just didn't serve me, right? And I just had this realization where if something doesn't serve you, then you become a slave to it, right? So if you just think about that a little bit. So if something doesn't serve you, then you become a slave to it. So what do I mean by that? The slave could be an emotional slave. It could be a time. It could be energy. So meaning how many WhatsApp groups and that you guys are probably on that you don't actually need to be on because they just consume your day and time. There's definitely groups that add value to you, etc. So I think there's a balance, right? And I think for me, for the guys who know me, is that I post, and the women and men, I post, or I used to post a heck of a lot, right, on Facebook. And I don't do it for any other reason other than it's a form of expression from myself. And because I love writing, those of you who know me, I've not stopped writing. I've just basically choose to sort of have a bit of a detox, right? And I think it's nice to have a detox. And I think this jolt that we're experiencing, I guess in life we all experience a jolt and curveball or whatever your analogy or metaphor you guys want to use, but this reset has shown me certainly, and some of the guys related to it as well on the call, that time is precious, right? And how you choose and spend your time and who you spend your time and energy with matters, right? And where you spend it matters. So I think for me, I'll stop there, but for me that was probably the biggest realization, that how can I continue to be there for people who are there for me? How can I socially not be pressured to be in something that I don't feel that I'm adding any value? But by the way, there's no negative connotation to it. It just no longer serves me, right? So whether that's social channels, whether that's virtual channels, whether that's physical relationships, whatever it is, right? Whether that's activities that are not in line with where I want to be in life. So whatever that is. So I think for me, that was probably the biggest lockdown, I guess, learnings, if you like. I mean, there's been loads, right? But that would probably be the...
I want to add something, and hello to everyone that's joining live. We are debriefing our meeting that we just had from a private Zoom on lockdown learnings, and Manoj just shared a beautiful learning from him. We've actually got a comment in the chat from Jack. One of my lockdown learnings was that I can actually do more with less. I've been productive without a lot of daily distractions that were no longer accessible to me due to lockdown. I felt like I've become a lot more grounded and in tune with myself, regular check-ins, and do with myself, and it's really given me a lot of focus and clarity. And thank you for that, Jack. I think that's something that I personally relate to, and quite a few people that join our private Zoom also related to as well. And that a lot of a lot of the things that we were allowing ourselves to be distracted by, I think we realized weren't actually that important in our lives. And for me, the biggest lockdown learning has actually been that I'm pretty good. Like, I've got a roof over my head. I've got no worries when it comes to food. We've got enough sort of money in the bank for security. Like, what more could I possibly want? Anything else on top of that is the bonus. And I know that sounds really, really simplistic, but when we look at the way we were, say, at the start of the year, where we were worried about what's going on online and what's happening in the football and all this kind of stuff, when all of that was taken away, like, we made it. Yes, there's a pandemic and all this stuff going on, and we have to be mindful and we have to be socially responsible. But at a micro level, after the initial kind of panic and anxiety over what was going on, it was like, I'm pretty good. I don't actually need that much.
And that's a really, and is it Jack? Did you say Jack?
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome, Jack. And I think I love that because the bit that I took away from it, he mentioned grounded, right? You mentioned the word, yeah, because Viraj, what you're saying, 100% agree, right? It's what is it that you actually need and what is it that you actually want, and there's a massive difference between need and want, right? And what Jack shared is really great because life always has a way of humbling us, right? And always has a way of keeping us in check and grounding us, right? And grounding our ego and just whoever we are. So I think you're right. Like, there's, we were just discussing earlier, weren't we, guys? That whatever we have, whatever we're complaining about, that's someone's wish. So whatever you're going through, whatever nightmare you're going through, actually, as crazy as it may sound, maybe somebody's dream. So let me put that into perspective. So the nightmare of not having enough income could be someone's dream, because you may not have enough income, but you have a roof over your head, you have food on the table, you have clothes on your back, and you're drawing a new breath each day, meaning you're alive, right? You're alive. So everything is perspective, as they say, and I think I can completely relate to that. Completely relate to that.
Well, it goes back to that thing, yeah, whereas how do you define wealth, right? And I think now, especially in lockdown, I think a lot of us, whether we've got a job, whether we've been furloughed, whether you're looking for a job, actually, guys are still the wealthiest, because what you've actually, instead of thinking about the negative side of it, what you've actually achieved is not just more family time, which is more wealthy than actually having money, right? But there's so much, I think, as someone said in our group, is why is it that during this lockdown, a lot of people are taking it as a negative, but actually, if we flip that mindset and actually realize and write it down, what have you actually achieved during this lockdown that you wouldn't have been able to do if there was no lockdown or if there was no COVID, right? I mean, for example,
That's
you both know
I just
that,
want to when you're
yeah,
writing that down is also what's still possible when you're in lockdown, because it
yeah,
can be very easy to say I've not done anything, but then also what can you still do? So carry on. Yeah.
yeah. No, so I mean, as I said, and for me, I mean, you both know that, of course, with my industry, I don't really get much time spending it with family and so on. And okay, yeah, I might be up in my room half the time sorting out all these Zoom calls and so on. But actually, I've got more. I'm so blessed and actually so happy. I'm loving lockdown, because I would have never been able to spend time with my newborn niece if I had weddings, because I would have been so busy that, and then what's going to happen as a result is, yeah, my brother will actually come back to me and say, well, you don't care about your niece, right? Even though I'm busy and he knows I'm busy. But now, doesn't matter what it is, and if I am busy doing Zoom stuff, I've actually been able to partition my energy and my time, that actually when I am with my niece, and my brother knows this, when I'm with my niece, I don't care if it's a wedding call or you guys calling, my phone does not, I do not pick up my phone. Whereas if lockdown didn't happen, my phone is literally with me. Okay, who's going to ring? Okay, who's going to ring? And then I'm not actually physically, I might be physically there, but mentally, I'm not actually with that person at that moment because I'm still thinking about weddings and so on. But this is giving me the, and I'm still growing, I'm still learning, and it takes time. And, you do think back to, I do think back to my previous relationship, and it's given me a lot more time to think that why did it end? What happened? And people might say to me, well, Sagar, the past is the past, move on, but it's not that easy, especially when you have nothing to do and you're stuck at home. Your past does come back to you. Now, it depends on how you process it. And then again, write it down. And hopefully when we come out of lockdown, what Vera just says, that what is actually possible, right? Don't stop what you're doing, what you've done because it's lockdown. Continue that when we do come out of lockdown, because it's just going to make you grow and you're going to enjoy every moment of it.
100%, 100%. And the big question, I love that. And the big question that we ask, and we always ask, right? And it always comes up in topic every 2 weeks when we do these talks, is that what is normality, right? Because normality is subjective, and normality to you might be different normality to me. And are we actually, as society, governments, country level, and to some degree, the most important level, us, and I think Viraj mentioned this on the earlier talk, us as individuals, what are we going to choose to continue doing? Or are we going to go back to the old ways, whatever the old ways were, right? And I think it's individual. And each one person will be different, and not everyone's going to. Some people will go back to the old ways. Some people will take the positive routine, ritual, habit, or change, whatever that catalyst is, and carry that forward in their lives. And I think, on a personal note, I think it'd be a real tragedy not to take something that has been a positive influence in your life and the life of others and not continue that into whatever your version of normality is. And just my own opinion, but I'd love to see what the audience thinks on that, because I think it's on one extreme you've got the horrendous tragedy, and I know Viraj, you shared that you've got on a personal level relatives that have lost their lives, and I think 4, right, in one family you mentioned, which is horrendous. And anyone who's suffered a loss of a loved one or a friend or a relative, anyone who's important to you. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum where people haven't actually yet experienced that, and a lockdown has been an absolutely godsend for them, right? And I'm one of those people, right? But it doesn't mean I'm desensitized to what's going on around the world. I think there's just a balance of views and I guess awareness is the right word, having the right level of awareness.
I think on the balance of things, and I say this very, very subjectively, and to Sagar's point there about the individual and what you're saying there, Manoj, is that in many ways, lockdown has shown that we have very little to complain about when it comes to real meaningful stuff. Yes, of course, we do have concerns about shelter and food, but when we look at an individual level, what's possible that we can do, like, I know people that are absolutely thriving, that this opportunity for them to actually reconnect with what's important has actually have them perform at a level that they never knew was possible. And there are other people at the other end of the extreme. And yes, it's very easy to criticize the government, criticize politicians, the scientists, like, why are we in this situation? We saw this thing coming a mile off, right? And something that we touched on is like, we heard it in the news 3 or 4 months later, we knew it was coming, and yet the reaction was what it was. And yes, you can point fingers at people, but for every finger that you point out, there are 3 pointing right back at you. And that's the real power that we all have. And I hope that everyone really connects to that, is that it can take one person to cause a significant difference in the world. And what I mean by that is, we look at Sir Tom in the UK raising over £100 million for charity from just walking around his garden.
Mm-hmm.
We've got examples in history where one person forget the good or bad labels, whether you go from Hitler to Martin Luther King to Mahatma Gandhi, one person stood for something and people followed. It just shows the power that we have as people. Now, we can say that one of the things that came up in the meeting was, yeah, people should now stop eating this, that, and the other side, but that's a personal choice. But this goes to show that a demand for something in a wet market has potentially caused a global pandemic. And very similarly, the power of our individual choices matters. And rather than pointing the finger out at the world, what better opportunity to really look inward to say, okay, what is it that I can now do that I could never do before? Or how has this pause, as uncomfortable as it may seem, has opened more doors than ever before? Because otherwise, we could just go back to the status quo. But we know that to a certain extent, that really wasn't fulfilling a lot of people. It's kind of the conditioning and the familiarity that a lot of us got used to. But we've gone through that. We're still here. The question is really what's next, and how is it just going backwards, or taking what we know right now and taking the moment to reflect on, okay, what has this lockdown shown me as the opportunity to grow? I forget growing and all that stuff, right? Because again, that's all personal development talk. But if we keep it real, what has this time really revealed to us on an individual level about what's important to us and what we value, and how much of it is actually going to serve us going forward?
Definitely, definitely, 100%. And I think if you, yeah, and I think it's around the awareness, right? It's what has this current situation, the current pandemic, what does it first mean to you on an individual level? And meaning, like, are you now more aware what's happening in the world? Because poverty was always there, right? Misery and death and people less fortunate was always there. Whether we are ignorant to something happening in in Africa or Sudan or whichever country, are we more aware of that? If so, what does it mean? What does it mean? Is it on a superficial level? Is it on a conscious level? Is it on an actionable level? By actionable level, I mean that is there something that's in your power? Not that it has to be, but for you to create some positive change, back to what Viraj was saying. And it's almost like using this as a catalyst of positive change for you without any expectation or judgment or anything around you. And even if it raises your awareness of your mindset, even if you become physically fitter, more spiritually aware, you're serving other people more, you're doing charity, like the example that Riraj gave, and whatever form of charity, right? Surely that's a great place to channel your energy and time, right? And I think, but it's to do it without expectation is the key, right? And I think it's to do it because you want to do it, and it has to come from within, and it has to come from a real place of authenticity and integrity. So I think the real question, I guess, to each of us individually is what exactly what you said, Viraj, is what are the possibilities? What can I do? What's within my power? What can I do to improve my life, the lives of others around me, and the lives of the circle of influence? So by circle of influence, I mean not just your immediate loved ones and families, but just the people just generally around you, right? Because like Sir Thomas, phenomenal example of somebody who, I mean, would you have thought that was possible to raise that much money, millions, in his own garden? Like, absolutely, and that age as well, right? So if he's got no excuses, no one's got any excuses, right? And it's all relative to what is possible. And I think if you keep asking those questions and healthy questions, right? It's not to say that everyone's going to be these gurus or businesses or raise millions for charity, whatever, but whatever positive change you can inflict on yourself and people around you, I think surely that's got to be a good thing, right?
Yeah, I think that can only happen if you do change that mindset, that actually take something positive out of this lockdown or this whole pandemic. Because, as I said, it's very easy to fall back thinking, oh my God, I've lost this, I've lost this, I've lost this, what am I going to do? And as Viraj said, everyone, right? We're very quick to react, instead of actually taking a step back and thinking, okay, well, this has happened. yeah, we might come out of it next year, or we might not. And again, with the expectation that if you're thinking that is we're going to come out of it next year, and if we don't, then you're the only one that's going to suffer, not everyone else around you, right? Because you're the one that expected that. Now that it hasn't fallen into place, you have to start from square one. And as I said, a good example of that is I've got a very good friend of mine who is also in the wedding business. And okay, yeah, she was doing X amount of weddings and so on. And now, of course, with lockdown, no weddings. She's in the sort of luxury market. Weddings have come to a halt. So instead of her just not being depressed about it, but instead of her just thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? She's got children to feed. She took her the entire business online. Forget about weddings, but she took what else she's good at, which is actually supporting her couples, making other people, helping other people grow. She's now created a online, brought her business online, and she's now making six figures, which she never made ever, right? But that was never going to be possible. And what I mean is, if lockdown didn't happen, if this pandemic wasn't here, she would have never ever thought about doing this online business, which is making her more money than actually her being at weddings, right? But both of it's her passion. She's used her skill set, she's used her passion to actually not just create something for herself, but in return, she's helping so many people build their business during this pandemic. And she's taken out what people don't realize is when I say something like this, people will be like, yeah, see, it's all about money. It's all about money. No, 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 no. Time is money, right? But when you're spending 2 hours with someone, helping them, yeah, you're going to get money in return. But what people don't realize is just you spending time with this person, helping them grow. How wonderful is that? That everyone can make money instead of just you, right? So, these things, I don't think people actually realize that lockdown has made people think, this pandemic has made people think that what else can I do? What else can I learn?
On that note, there's a great share here from you, Raj. Personally, the lockdown gave me an opportunity to learn new knowledge via Zoom. For example, I've learned how to read Sanskrit and follow introductory Sanskritam classes as a bonus. I can read a little Hindi as well, as they have the same characters. FYI, my mother tongue's Tamil, so these two languages are new to me. Like, how wonderful is that? Just being able to just expand your repertoire like that. Ravi saying, hey guys, hope you're well. Good to see you here, buddy. And a really nice message here from Jack. Really appreciate this, guys. It's my first time joining and really refreshing to see guys talking about some things other than the stereotypical men's chat. So thank you for having this space, including us all in. Big love. No, we appreciate you, Jack. And this is our very intention, that nothing is off the table for us, that we've spoken about the whole spectrum of things, and even with those, I'm sure we can continue to go deeper on a few things as well. And these topics are all brought to us by the people that participate in the private Zoom for men, that came before this. But then also we wanted to expand that to include everyone too. So if you have any suggestions for any topics, please feel free to share them, and we can definitely do a private Zoom on that, and then have a Facebook Live as we are right now as well. And again, we've got people joining from Asia, from Europe, and North America tuning in as well. So it just shows that these conversations, no matter where you are in the world, are truly needing to be had.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think it'd be nice to, just to touch on anyone new who is joining in for the first time. We have one single mission, and that is to ensure that another male does not become a statistic to suicide. Period. Right. So it's not our space; it's your space. So back to Raj's point, if there is any topics that the men and women, and the reason I say men and women, even though the actual Mindful Men's Club is for men only, we also have two sister groups. So we have Reroute and we have mental wealth, right? So there are both two sister groups. So if there's any topics that women want to suggest, and actually women have suggested a topic before that we've actually brought into our chat, otherwise they'll probably have never got men in their life to talk about it, right? Just to keep it real. So we've talked about some considered taboo subjects like celibacy amongst men, and suicide and bullying, and some really deep subjects. So I just want to put out there that if there's any subjects or topics that you want us to talk about, please post it in the chat on our Mindful Men's Facebook page, or on this live right now, or on, I think Saga sharing a watch party, on whoever's, right? Please share it, because it's not our space, it's yours. And just going back to what Saga mentioned and what you mentioned in terms of Viraj, is it just goes to show that the reset is multi-dimensional, right? Meaning, and it's personal. So Sagar touched on a reset from a friend or from an entrepreneurship perspective, etc. The reset could be spiritual, the reset could be physical, it could be your environment being your physical environment, like how have you actually changed your landscape at home. One of the, a couple of the men mentioned that they've got a nice divide between work-life balance now, and they've got the space, so they've put a treadmill in there, they've got gym equipment in there because they've frozen their gym membership, or they've cancelled, etc., because of the lockdown right now. And it's whatever you've done with it, right? So I think whatever that reset means to you, and whatever positive action you've done with it, and some people have mentioned about charity and serving others, etc. So I think it is truly multidimensional, and it's what it means to you. And I think we're just fascinated with listening and understanding, whether it's on a chat or you want to post it in the comments, etc. What has your lockdown lessons mean? Because that was our topic of conversation. I think Jack's contributed, Raj has contributed to sharing his, etc. We've shared ours, but it'd be really lovely to hear more of your lockdown lessons. Like what has lockdown actually meant to you? What is some of the and lessons doesn't have to be a physical lesson. It could be an awakening, an awareness, right? So what have you actually come out of that lockdown, or coming out of it? Certainly right now, we're all still in it, but what are you actually experiencing? And because that's something that you share might have a massive, profound impact on somebody listening as well. So
Yeah, I just got one here actually on my personal watch party. I moved during lockdown, something that may not have happened if things were normal, because I saw that my relationship with my daughter was being affected. And so yeah, thank you for sharing that. But yeah, that's a very good positive, right? Because a relationship was being affected, moving out has, sort of created a new relationship now. And how wonderful is that when we do come out of it? Hopefully that relationship will flourish. And whereas it might have not happened if they were still stuck in the same property, so
absolutely. And one of the men that, I mean, yeah, thank you for whoever shared that on Saga's watch party. And the word relationship is a big one, right? How many relationships have had a heightened awareness or focus where you've not taken it for granted? So everyone who knows me, right, I said my form of energy exchange is a hug. I absolutely adore giving hugs and receiving hugs. I mean, who doesn't, right? So I think I can't wait for all this stuff to be over, for just to me, and not that I ever took it for granted, but when you like go to someone's house, whether it's a friend or relative, or you're having banter amongst friends, and you do take it for granted, right? Because you're doing it every weekend. You think it's not going to go away, right? It's there, it's easy there. But having that deeper sense of relationship, whether it's with a loved one, whether it's with a friend or colleague, work colleague or business partner, whoever it is, I think for me personally anyway, it's heightened that, and it's that awareness, and it's made it, I guess, I mean, I've always been conscious about where I spend my time and energy, but I think it's made me more appreciative, I think is the right word to say. So I think when I do pick up that phone call, I'm even more connected with that person on the other end of the phone, or I guess we're all zoomed out, right? But like you guys, I'm pretty much have quite a lot of Zoom calls, but you're actually present in the moment. Don't you guys feel that you're more present, like when you're speaking to someone, as opposed to before? It's almost like superficial conversations
I think
on a high level.
I think the conversations are few and far between, but you're right, the quality of that conversation is not just the random hello. When you're speaking or engaging with someone, it's a proper check-in. So in some ways, I probably feel that I'm speaking to people less, but the quality is improved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the guys mentioned, right, on the talk, when we were talking about the subject of Diwali, right, and Christmas, right, two massive celebrations, right? Whoever's celebrating them, we celebrate both, right, because we always get the Christmas tree out, kids love it, etc. And we always celebrate Diwali. And Diwali's been really, really subdued, and Christmas is going to be really, really subdued. And he said the opposite. He said actually, which is nice to hear, right? And in terms of like, normally you meet, I don't know, for those of you of Indian origin, you meet hundreds of people, right, on Diwali, you know, at temples and family and gatherings. And he said the most people he's ever met is this Diwali, actually, and it's because of Zoom. But the quality of the conversations has been much more because it's been on a one-to-one basis. So I think it's, yeah, definitely. I think I definitely can relate to that. I'm not sure what your thoughts are, Saga, on that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, as I was saying earlier on the call, that again, people were very easy to react in terms of, oh my God, it's my 40th or a big birthday or this and that. And, the first reaction was, I can't believe, and then blame the government and this and that. However, Zoom, as well as some other platforms, they've actually brought us closer together, right? And I was mentioning this to you guys earlier, that when we did a 40th yesterday or last night on Zoom, we had a good 30, 40 people on, but they were from all around the world. Okay.
Mhm.
Whereas if that person had their 40th and celebrated it in a venue, if this COVID wasn't around, then her cousins, her close friends from America, India, wherever it is, they would have not come here to celebrate her 40th. They would have said happy birthday and done, and that would have been a WhatsApp as well, just happy birthday. Whereas what a lovely moment that everyone managed to say or wish that person a happy birthday. And actually, even though we were in our own homes, everyone was dancing. And it's
Mm,
so lovely to see, right? Because everyone was enjoying the birthday celebrations together, which would have never happened if we didn't do this Zoom thing. So I think, again, when people say, oh God, we've lost contact, well, really and truly, you haven't. Because if you again change that mindset and forget about the negative side of the pandemic, and actually think, how can I do something to still connect with people? There are so many more platforms. I mean, we should be so lucky that when it comes to the infrastructure around IT, we've got everything here, right? Whereas if you think about people in Africa, I mean, they don't have apps and mobile phones and Zooms and this and that. But, and again, we take this for granted that, oh yeah, but we don't have this, we don't have that. Actually, we've got everything we have to connect with so many people. We just don't use it because
I
we're
think
so
that's
busy.
the juxtaposition of it, right? The people that on the surface of it have the least
Yeah.
have the most, whereas the people that had the most feel like they've got the least of it, right? And
mhm,
it's interesting how this is really an opportunity for a lot of people to kind of pivot and just take a look, right? And see, okay, how much of their happiness, fulfillment, peace of mind was all external. It had to be going down the pub. It had to be getting your hair cut. It had to be the pedicure, manicure, whatever. But actually now, and I think this is a broader question, is people I have found a way or are looking to find the way. How can you be at your own source of your own fulfillment and happiness?
Mm.
Because when everything external shut off and you can't leave the house and you can't go to your favorite places to wine and dine, what have you got? And if you don't like what you have, start thinking about what it is that could do, because this could be our reality for another year or so, depending on what happens with vaccines and how they're distributed. Like, so let's not kid ourselves. This is a golden opportunity in terms of really finding fulfillment internally to make the external mean that much more when it is there and not be attached to it. There's a great comment here from Jack here. I feel the same. I found Diwali Bandi Chor much more meaningful this year. We learned the reasons to celebrate. We did activities throughout the day as a family. It wasn't about spending lots of money. It was more about the meanings, the feelings, and the emotions around the celebration, and grounding us all, where normally we would be so busy organizing shopping and whatnot. Definitely built more personal qualities as an individual and as a family.
Great. No, great. And I think you summarize it really nicely, Viraj, and I think beautiful, real example from Jack again. And I think it's like, what is your definition of happiness, right? Because we talked, I'm not going to go too deep into the subject because you get me started, but happiness, we all know, right, is an external state of mind, and it's your joy that is internal, right? And back to what you were saying is that, what can you do right now? What can you find? What can you see, touch, feel, experience that is going to give you inner joy? And I think that's what you should kind of latch onto, whether it's going for healthy walks, whether it's having authentic conversations with your loved ones, friends and family, whether it's in the mode of service, etc. Like, what is it? So just, I think it's just one of those things where you just gotta, I guess, take action, right? Like, and less excuse, because back to Saga's point, where's your mindset? Is your mindset in creating positive change for you and people around you and the lives of them? Or is it a case of, thinking, and I say this with utmost respect, it's all relative to the state of your mental health, right? And we've all been there, we've all been in dark places. So, but everything you can change. One of the guys mentioned that, he's an absolute fitness freak, right? But right now he's having a bit of a moment where he's going down, sort of potentially down the binging route, but his correction, or his way of correcting it, is to write down sequentially what he's doing and what he's writing, etc.
Yeah, I don't know, Manoj, I mean, what I do want to make clear, and this is just from a personal perspective, is shifting your mindset is actually very easy to do, right? However, saying that, it doesn't mean it can be easy for everyone else. And it also means, like I mentioned earlier, I've tried to shift my mindset in order to help others and get people together on Zoom and so on. However, if I have to understand and be honest with myself that it has also been hard, because the lockdown has created inner thoughts. It has brought back the past. It has made me think, okay, why? Which actually, on a flip side, is a good thing, because if I don't understand it and actually reflect on that and actually be honest with myself, so that's the whole thing. So if there was an issue in the past, and if you had a relationship breakdown like myself, then be honest, that was it actually my fault? And if it was your fault, the thing is when we talk to people or our loved ones, and you say, oh God, you know what, actually it was my fault, and I've actually realized now it was my fault, they'll be like, no, don't blame yourself, it's a two-way thing. I know it's a two-way thing, but what people tend to do is, again, react, like what I did. I reacted, it was her, not actually understanding that, hold on, I had a big fault of it. And if I've realized that during lockdown, I'm actually repeating that, right? Repeating why my marriage broke down. And I don't want to repeat it, but so I have to go back to it thinking, okay, do you know what, Sagar? You're going back into that same place that you were when you were in a relationship. We don't want to ruin a new relationship. So actually take a step back.
Blind spots are being brought to your awareness now to work on.
Yeah, and again, so shifting your mindset, yeah, good, do it, but actually do it by being honest with yourself and think, actually, you know what, I am actually depressed today. That's cool.
Right? And it's perfectly normal to say that, right? We're not all super happy beings, by the way, if anyone listening, right? We've all, I myself, a couple of years ago, for those of you who don't know, had suicidal thoughts, right? So I think what Saga is saying is just keep it real. We all have ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and I think it's good. I would say it's healthy, right? Saga, back to what you share, that you're having those thoughts because you're having those thoughts because you don't want to repeat them ultimately, right? So you're processing it, right?
And I think, no, exactly. Process it, and only then will you find the inner majama, you know?
All about that joy, right?
Yeah, it's all about the joy.
Only you can give it to yourself.
Great. Is there any other comments from anyone on Facebook or any questions?
No, just checking the chat.
Good.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good time to just kind of wrap up. And again, thank you for everyone that's joining. We're going to post our next events. We're going to upload a few more onto our Eventbrite page. We're mindful that we haven't filled that, so we're going to just reconvene, get some more events. And as we were saying earlier, please share your suggestions for any topics that you'd like us to talk about, discuss, if it's in a private Zoom with all the lads, and then on the Facebook Live subsequently as well. I think there's so much that we can cover, and I think we've been really blessed that we've been able to deep dive, into so many different topics. And yet there's still more work to do. And again, yeah, the main purpose of our space is to really help people connect, grow, and inspire one another to grow from wherever they're at right now. And as Manoj was saying, and our mission is that we don't want to lose another person to a suicide statistic. I feel that there's enough of us to hold space, and the more we can spread the word for people to join, be heard, that may well be enough to then want to consider other options and not choose to go down a path that some of us have been through and some of us have seen other people go through as well. So again, thank you so much for everyone for joining. Please do send us your suggestions. Manoj, are there anything you guys would like to add before we wrap up?
No, I think you summed up nicely. Just a massive shout out to the men and all the women who always join us. And for the women, there is 2 groups. Please check out our sister groups. They're called Reroute on Facebook and Mental Wealth. So without them, we actually wouldn't be here ourselves. So yeah, so please check those guys. And 2 weeks ago, if you haven't already seen the talk where all the men from Mindful Men's Club came together with the women at Reroute and Mental Wealth, if you haven't seen it, please check it out. It's on our page. I'm not sure if it's on our YouTube channel yet, but it will be soon. So definitely check it out. And
Yeah, guys. Yeah, that's the main thing. Please do subscribe, to our YouTube channel. We do share all of these Facebook Lives on there, as well as other YouTube pages where, if we did something on spirituality, we've got other links on there to spirituality, which at least, which has been shared amongst us. So, it might help you. You can dip in and out. You don't have to wait until Saturday to view it. So the YouTube channel is a very good tool to use, and you might just want to share it with others who you may think will benefit from it. Just on a final note, I mean, I hope Manoj and Viraj don't mind me saying this, but I've got another live tomorrow at 3:00. It's a bit of a deep live in terms of what I went through in terms of my personal journey, from depression, from happiness to depression, depression to anxiety, anxiety to actually trying to commit suicide 3 times, to where I am now, but also going back round in circles, going back into depression and so on. But hopefully that will connect with many people. If it does, then thank you so much for joining. It's going to be on the platform of Asian Patient. So do follow that group as well. It's Asian Patient. And we'll share it once we've done our live on the Mindful Men's Club, and we'll create a watch party on my personal page as well. So thank you so much, guys. I mean, yeah, it's
definitely.
been
I'll be tuning into that as well. So I definitely can't wait for that. Talk. Brilliant. We'll have a super amazing, blessed weekend. For those of you who have no clue what Viraj was talking about when he said Majama, translated, it's a Gujarati word. All it means is joy. So on that note, was it him? I don't know who said it. One of you guys started off. So yeah. I'm not going to comment any further on that. But it just means joy, right? In English, that's all. So on that note, on that happy note, have a blessed weekend. See you guys. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.